today we are getting all of this out of the freezer. We tried our best last summer to get as many different kinds of berries as possible so we can kind of experiment and see what we like. So today we are starting to get those out of the freezer and do something with them. We've got a decent stack of golden raspberries. We've got currants, both red currants, and then we have a little bit of black currants. A bag of high bush cranberries. And then also a bag of red elderberries. We have a lot of berries in the freezer, so we are splitting this up into 2 different days. So this is just half of it, and then in a few days we'll tackle the other half. We are also going to reference 2 different books today, the Ball Preserving book, and then also this Discovering Wild Plants book too. The plan with all of these berries that we have is we're going to make 2 different kinds of juices and then 2 different kinds of syrups with them all. I'm trying to decide which one might take the longest, and I think we are going to start off with the elderberries. So up here in Alaska, we have the kind of elderberry that has the red berries on it. The seeds and the plant itself is poisonous, but if you take out the seeds and you cook it, it's fine and you can totally eat it. So we are going to get all of the stems off of these, which they've been frozen, so it should come off pretty quickly, and we are going to start cooking them down. And then before we actually make our juice out of it, we're going to strain all of the seeds and the pulps out, so it'll be safe to eat. So I'm going to get the majority of the stems out. If there's still a couple of stems that make their way into this pot, I'm not going to worry about it because in the end we are going to strain out everything, so they won't be in the finished product at all. So we picked out most of the stems, and now we're just going to get this up to a boil and really cook it down. So these berries have been boiling for about 15-20 minutes. They're losing a lot of their color. It's getting leached into the water. I did add a little bit of water to this, about 1/4 cup, just to keep them from burning as they were releasing their juices. And I think we're at the point where we are going to strain out the juice from this. We are going to turn this into a syrup, though. I don't know if I said that before. So we're going to strain out the juice and then put the juice back in this container, add a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of sugar, get that cooked down pretty well, and then we'll get it into jars. So I finally found my cheesecloth, so we're going to utilize this and get these berries straining. I'm going to let it just sit for a while, and while it's kind of just letting gravity do its thing, I'm going to be working on the next one, which is doing the high bush cranberries. I'm going to get this pot rinsed out because we are going to be taking that juice, putting it back in here to turn it into a syrup, but we're going to do that after that's all fully drained out. So our plan with the high bush cranberries is just to simply make cranberry juice. So we are going to split this bag into these 8 jars because I can fit 8 jars in the water bath canner. We're going to spread them out evenly and then fill them up with water till about 1 inch of headspace and then run them through the canner. Well, I ended up grabbing 4 more jars, so we actually have 12 in total. They're just filled about 1.5 to 2 inches, and then we are going to fill it the rest of the way with water. The cranberry juice is starting to go in the canner, and we're going to move back on to our elderberry syrup. So we have just under 2 cups of juice. To that, we want to add almost double the amount of sugar to turn it into a syrup. So I think we're going to add about 3 cups of sugar. I am changing my mind and making the decision. I'm going to do equal parts juice to sugar. So I'm just going to wait until this gets up to a boil, and then we are going to put it into our jars, which for this elderberry syrup, I think I'm going to do the little, I think they're 1/4 pint, like little 4-ounce jars. We're going to have to see how much we like this elderberry syrup. As of right now, I don't really foresee us probably doing this again. We'd have to really like it to do it again anyway. While I've been cooking it up, Cody has been not enjoying the smell of it whatsoever. And then I also just don't really like the whole aspect of dealing with things that are potentially very toxic, especially in the house where Rowan could accidentally come across a little piece that I miss. So if I were to do again, I would probably wait until she was a little bit older and knows better. Like I said, it would just have to be something that we probably really enjoy to do again. But we definitely wanted to at least try it once. So I'm not going to regret doing this, even if we don't like it at all, because we want to try it. But I don't foresee it being one of our favorites. And these are all done and good to go. We ended up with 6 of these little, I think they're 4-ounce jars. So we got 6 of them, and they are now just going to sit in the queue to head into the water bath canner. Depending on how long this ends up taking, I might get the generator going and get out my electric canner just so we can have 2 of them going at the same time. Our first batch of cranberries is out of the canner. We dug out our second canner so we could get another one going right away as that one is cooling. So we are going to move on to our next 2 types of berries and get those canned up as well. We are going to do another juice with the currants, and then we are going to do some more syrup with the raspberries. So our plan with these currants is we're going to do juice. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with those cranberries. We're just going to put the berries into the jar and then pour water over top of them. I was hoping to get 2 jars worth out of the black currants just so we can try it separately from the red, but I don't think we have quite enough. So I think we're only going to get 1 jar of the black, but then we should be able to get quite a few of the red. There you go. Our 1 and only jar of black currants. So we've got 8 of the red currants and 1 of the black currants. Now we just need to fill them all up with water, get the lids on, and then they are next in line for the canner. Since we have so much of the golden raspberries, we actually decided that we are going to do 2 different things with them. We are going to make a syrup, and then we're also going to make a jam. I'm going to start with the syrup, and I'm just going to follow the Ball Book's recipe for blueberry syrup, but I'm going to substitute the blueberries for these raspberries and just kind of see how it goes. For some reason, a lot of the syrups in this recipe book call for corn syrup as part of the ingredients, and I don't really want to add that. So the blueberry one doesn't call for that, so that's why I'm going to just kind of head down that lane. So we're going to take one of these bags and we are going to turn this into some syrup. Ooh, just opening this bag, it smells so good. Raspberries have cooked down in the water for a bit, so we've got our juice. We just need to strain it out and then get it back on the stove to continue adding a little bit more water and then some of the sugar. These golden raspberries are a lot sweeter to begin with than red raspberries are, so I might just right off the bat, usually I like to just follow the recipe my first time when I'm trying things, but I think right off the bat I'm just going to half the amount of sugar that I put in this. I think almost every single time we've made something, it's just too sweet for us. So this pulp we're going to save and we're going to add it to our jam. Might be a little extra seedy, but I think we're fine with that. It's looking good. You can see how many, got just over 4 cups of juice out of all of that. So we're going to pour this juice back into our bowl, get it on the heat, and then add a few more things to it before we can start canning it up. So before I turn the heat back on, I'm going to add all of the rest of the ingredients. The first thing we need to do is add a little bit more water. Next, we are going to put in the sugar, which, like I said earlier, I'm going to put in half the amount of sugar that it's asking me to. And I have learned it's best to stir it as you're adding the sugar than just to add it all at once. And lastly, we're just going to add a splash of lemon juice. So this batch in the canner finally finished. It's ready to go. I'm still boiling this one down. The recipe said to add 4 cups of water at the end, and I kind of regret adding all of that in there because now I feel like I'm just going to have to sit here and evaporate 4 cups of water. So we'll see. I think I'm going to put a little note in my notebook that maybe next time I don't want to add all of that water right away and just kind of pay attention to the consistency of the syrup first. So we are just going to sit here and just keep letting it boil and evaporate until I think it looks at a decent consistency. I don't really want to add more sugar to try to thicken it, so we're just going to have to play the waiting game. We've got the canners switched out. The next batch is going in here. And so far I think we've lost almost a full inch of liquid, but we still have a while to go. We just tested it and it is still very, very liquidy. We took a little bit and cooled it off and it's still very, very watery. So next time I do this, I am most definitely not adding 4 cups of water because I just don't really see the point if you just have to evaporate it. The syrup still looks pretty watery, but it's also pretty hot. When I took some out again to test it to let it cool down, it seemed to thicken up quite a bit, so I think we're happy with it so far. So we are going to start filling some jars. Once again, we're going to do these little 4-ounce jars. It's like a nice golden yellow. This is looking like it's going to be the last jar that I fill, which means we got 14 of these 4-ounce jars. And Cody and I both gave it a little bit of a taste test, and it tastes really good. So we finished the syrup. There's just a little tiny bit left in this bowl. I'm just going to leave it in there, and we are going to start making some golden raspberry jam next. So this can just get added into that, along with the seeds and the pulp left over. And then this is just going to be your standard jam recipe. However, I do anticipate I'm just going to half the amount of sugar that has to go in there. technically it fits. It'll fit a little bit better once it actually cooks down. It's kind of a frozen block in there, so we're gonna get this over onto the burner. Last one for tonight. It definitely is a very unappetizing looking jam that we're making here, but it smells really, really good, and I know it's gonna taste really good too. So we just have to look past how it looks, I guess. I almost forgot, but I have to add my fruit pectin powder. Get that all mixed in before we get up to our boil. So this is just now starting to get up to a boil. The canner is going, and I think it is almost done. I'm gonna let this go for just a little bit longer, and then we're gonna add our sugar and get it back up to a boil again. I am a little concerned about overflowing our pot, so that is kind of gonna be the limiter on how much sugar we put in there, but that's totally fine because we don't really wanna add that much anyway. I'm also really hoping that adding the sugar is going to greatly improve the color and look of this jam, because I've found that when I'm making jams or jellies, they kind of don't look that great, but then as soon as you add the sugar, it kind of brightens them up a bunch. So even if we add just a little bit, I think it's going to make a pretty good difference to the look of this. Not bad. And the final batch is done. We ended up with 10 full jars, and then we got just over half of a jar that's going to go in the fridge for us to have sometime this coming week. Overall, I'm pretty happy with everything that we just got done today. It was definitely a long day. Hopefully tomorrow's project is going to be a little bit shorter than this one, but it feels good to get everything out of that freezer and finally get it onto the shelves where we can actually start trying to enjoy some of this stuff. We still have 2 more canner loads to work through, and then I'm excited to kind of see all of them sitting next to each other, and then we can get a final count of how many jars we just did today. We're finally starting our last batch in the canner. This one's still cooling, and then the rest are on the floor. Whew, that was a long day of preserving. We have many, many more jars now full of all of these berries. It is a good thing that I noted the difference between the black currant and the red currant, because after canning, they both look identical. So at least I know which one's which, so we can see if the taste is any different. I think it should be, because the berries themselves are quite a bit different, but after the canning process, we'll just see. Overall, I think we are very happy with all of this. We have the tomatoes and the barbecue sauce from the couple days before, but otherwise, all the rest of this was just one day of preserving things out of the freezer. I'm probably the most excited for the cranberry juice. I think it looks really pretty, but also just being able to open up a jar, maybe dilute it a little bit with water, add a little bit of sugar. I'm not really sure yet because we haven't tried it, but I think there's going to be a lot of possibilities for this, and I'm super excited to actually try it. And like I said earlier, this is only half of the berries that we had in our freezer, so we still have a whole nother day of berries coming up. Not tomorrow, because I need a break from doing all of the batches. I think we ended up doing 7 batches in the canner. We'll give it a couple days, and then we're going to tackle the other half of the berries later.